Hello guys, welcome to Motor World India from the Varela Pass. We are at 17,000 feet of altitude. It's really cold. And we are here with BMW Motorrad to ride the brand new R1300GS. I am Zain from this engine. Let's get into it. After 20 years of incremental upgrades to the GS platform, BMW has finally revolutionized the whole platform. It's a brand new engine, brand new chassis, and so are the looks. Gone are the asymmetrical headlights, and we now have a symmetrical light on the front. Some people like it, some people don't like it. BMW says they wanted a distinctive identity of the GS, which is why they've gone for this particular design, so that if you look in the mirror and if you see that light pattern, you definitely know it's a GS that's following you. So from the side as well, the look is completely new. From the chassis, which we will get to in a bit, to the tank profile, which is now a lot less slimmer. It's a lot less intimidating. BMW said that they wanted to slim down the tank so that the bike was more comfortable to ride off-road. Having ridden it here, I can agree to that. Even the side profiles are quite sharp, but narrower, slimmer, less complicated, gives the motorcycle a more subtle look. That brings me to the engine. It's still a boxer. It's now 1300cc. It still has shift cam, but BMW says it's completely redesigned from the ground up. With the 1250, the cylinders were placed offset, so you had less room on the right side than you did on the left side. They are now parallel, so now you have equal room on both sides. To do that, BMW had to redesign the whole valve train, and while doing that, they also made sure that the cooling on the cylinder heads is much better. So now on the heads there are less fins, which means less air cooling, which means less heat that you feel on your legs. With that, they've got now 9 more horsepower than the 1250 while maintaining the same fuel efficiency. What BMW also managed to do was move the gearbox from behind the engine to under the engine. What that allows them to do is to extend the swing arm and the shaft and mount the swing arm on both sides of the frame, increasing the rigidity. The engine by itself is 6.5 kilograms lighter just by that. The GS was targeted to lose 12 kilos, half of which was done primarily on the engine. It now produces 9 more horsepower. When it comes to rideability, can you feel the difference between the 1250 and the 1300? I don't think most riders will be able to feel it. It is definitely more potent. BMW has increased the bore, reduced the stroke, which means the engine is a lot more revier. That is primarily what you feel. But if you're coming from a 1250, it's still a boxer, it's slightly bigger, it's got shift cam, it feels very familiar from the 1250. That brings me to the frame. This is a completely new design language. So we have a pressed steel sheet chassis that's on the front that holds the engine as a stress member. Ground up, it's a new chassis, brand new engine. Everything is new, even the telelever suspensions are evolved into a new design. Considering all of that, it feels like a GS. It feels very integral. The engine and the chassis feel like they perfectly made together in terms of look, and it rides very well. The bike is a lot more agile. It feels a lot more nimble, especially on the ghat sections, working very well. On the rear now, you have a cast aluminium subframe that makes up the chassis of the bike. That brings me to suspension. That's where BMW have gone really high on developing a new technology. The rear shock now has variable spring rate. As people with adjustable suspension would know, a fixed spring rate is the problem with most suspension tuners, because it's very difficult to tune into a multitude of scenarios with just a single spring. What BMW have now done is you've got your primary spring and you've got a secondary spring inside this black canister that BMW can bring into play as and when the ECU thinks it's feasible. So Enduro Pro, Enduro, Dynamic Pro, these riding modes, that spring can come into play electronically, dynamically, without you having to do anything. That completely changes the suspension game, because now your spring rate varies with your damping varying, and you will have a perfectly set up rear end all the time. That is revolutionary technology. On the front, the system has not changed drastically. It's an evolution, but it's a very crucial evolution. We still have the telelever front unit. But now on the previous 1250 you had your front forks that were mounted on swivel mounts onto the top clamp. Because of the telelever movement, you need to have the forks swivel around. What that did was it took away a little bit of feedback from the handlebar, because the handlebar was not directly connected to the front forks. BMW has now moved that swivel mount from the top of the forks to the steering stem bearing. Very clever engineering, which BMW is very good at. Now what that does is your handlebar is directly connected to the top of your front forks, and the whole steering bearing can then swivel and do whatever it wants to do. But now you have a lot more feedback coming onto the handlebar. Direction changes. When we were on the ghat section and I wanted to do some direction changes, the feedback that I got from the front handlebar was far superior than the 1250. It is a lot more confidence inspiring. The front end on this bike is leaps ahead of the 1250 with just that incremental of a change, and that baffles my mind. Another thing to notice, the handling is definitely more agile. That is something you can feel. You may not be able to feel the engine power, the difference in engine power between the 1250 and the 1300, but the handling, it is a lot more agile. It's got the similar wide bars like the 1250, so again it's a very familiar place. Switch clusters are identical apart from the sandwich button. The meter is the same, so when you're sitting on the motorcycle, it's a very familiar place, especially for GS owners. The one thing that I'm really excited about on this bike are the brakes. It still says BMW, but they're now manufactured by Brembo. BMW and Brembo finally came to an agreement where BMW can use their calipers. What this means and why I'm excited is because this means that the new S1000 that might come whenever could have Brembo brakes, and on the track that will make a massive difference. Keeping that aside, the new brakes, the old BMW brakes were not bad to begin with. They were really good. They had very good stopping power. These are that marginally better. In an emergency braking scenario, and when you're going really hard on the brakes, if you're on the ghat or if you're on the trails, that last extra bit of braking performance that you get from the Brembos, that makes a little bit of a difference. The feedback on the lever is way better than previously. The stopping power, although similar, but the feedback is the killer. Then we come to the electronics. Now BMW has always been on the forefront with electronics, and the 1250 we think pretty much had it all. It had multiple modes of ABS, traction control, hill hold, auto hold on the brakes, cruise control, whatnot. Here in the cockpit there you can see, first things first, a few things that have changed. We have a new button here, so this is called the sandwich button. It's basically a quick action button. You can press that button and you can change a few things directly on the fly. So damping, traction control, the windscreen, which we will get to in a bit, heated grips, and all of these are something that you can change on the fly. So that's one. The display is identical to the old one. Riding modes and everything are the same. There's not much of a difference there. Bike is drastically different mechanically. With the 1300, BMW have advanced a little bit in a few crucial spaces. So the first time ever, BMW now gets an electronic windshield. So at the touch of a button, you can raise and lower the windshield. That is the first, and it is infinitely adjustable, so you can lift and place it wherever you want. The windshield itself can be moved in two physical places on the mounts, and on top of that you get full adjustability. So I don't think we'll need aftermarket windshields for this bike anymore. Then we have something called adaptable ride height. We've seen this already on the Harley Davidson Pan America, and basically what it does is whenever you come to a stop or you come under 30 kilometers per hour, the rear of the motorcycle drops down so that you are more comfortable to keep your feet down. And once you cross 50 kilometers per hour, again the rear lifts up again, so to give you the full suspension adjustability. That ride height device also has some clever feature where once you want to put the motorcycle on the center stand, which can be a little bit of a cumbersome task on these heavy motorcycles, if you put the center stand down, the rear suspension lifts up so that it's easier for you to put the motorcycle on the center stand. We've seen it work, and it's not a gimmick. It makes your life much easier to lift the motorcycle on the center stand. Apart from those two big changes, you have small changes like the new key, which has a sleep function so that the battery lasts longer. The panniers can now be unlocked remotely, so as you walk closer to the motorcycle, the panniers unlock by themselves, and the panniers are adjustable on this bike if you choose to buy from BMW. Here's my final verdict on this motorcycle. When you get on the bike, from the handlebars to how it starts, to how the electronics is, to how the engine delivers power, everything is very familiar. The character of the motorcycle, of the GS, is truly maintained on this bike. Now, considering this is a completely revamped bike from the ground up, credit to BMW to make sure that it still feels like a GS. It's phenomenal how they've achieved this. Now, is the engine as characterful, as fun as maybe the multistrada V4? No. Is the motorcycle as comfortable to off-road as the Africa Twin? No. But if you want one motorcycle to do everything, to give you enough fun on the ghats, to be capable off-road, to go anywhere, and for sure be reliable, then I don't think this can be beaten. BMW has moved the benchmark of top-class adventure motorcycling again. That's it from me. Thank you very much for BMW for bringing me out here, letting me ride their brand new motorcycle. I hope I've been able to give you enough insights on the bike. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this the new benchmark? Has BMW done a great job? What do you think of the new looks, new headlight? I'm Zain from this engine, and I'll see you next time.